to pursue higher education without the risk of deportation. But under the current administration of President Trump, he wants to eliminate DACA completely, leaving millions of DACA recipients kind of hanging out to dry, which is why it's important to understand the economic benefits of DACA and its ability to allow undocumented students to pursue higher education, which also in turn grants the active participation within our society. So, what is DACA? DACA provides protection from deportation to young people who came to the United States as children and who arrived in this country before their 16th birthday. This population of children are called the 1.5 generation, which means that they were born in a different country, but they were brought over to the United States at a very, very young age. So therefore, these students or these teens or children might not remember their homeland that much, but they essentially grew up in the United States. They've been in the United States almost their entire life, but even then, they still don't qualify for in-state tuition, which is why DACA is so important for them. DACA requires applicants to be in school or pursuing some type of active degree, and it also allows them to be lawfully present without the threat of deportation. So this means that DACA gives the recipients temporary social security numbers, which allows them to, apply for health insurance, get a job, open bank accounts, open credit cards, kind of live as normal people do in the United States. We don't really have to think about getting a social security number because we were born with it if you were born in the United States. But, the social security number is so important for basically everything in the United States, which is why DACA is so important to these people and why so many people need DACA in their lives. And despite the benefits that DACA brings, it also costs a lot of money. So DACA costs $465, including an $85 for biometrics and $380 work authorization document. So as you can see, that's a lot of fees. And so these fees need to be paid upon renewal. So every single time they renew their DACA, these fees must be paid, which is why DACA is kind of more biased towards higher income immigrant families because they're able to pay this fee every time they renew. But lower income immigrant families aren't able to always pay the fee every time it's renewed, which means that it leads to these, DACA recipients to possibly drop out of school in order to support their family and make ends meet, which is taking away from their active pursuing of a higher education. So a little bit of the background of the immigrant population. Nearly 1/3 of the immigrant population of the United States is now undocumented, and it is also the fastest growing child sector of population in the United States, which account for 1.8 million or 15% of all 9.6 million undocumented students from Latin America countries living in the United States. And an estimated 65,000 the undocumented students graduate from U.S. high schools each year, but only 5 to 10% of them are able to enroll in college. And as you can see, this is a little graph that I found, and this is from Pew Research, and it illustrates the rapid dropout rate that the Hispanic population has from 1996 to 2016. So as you can see, it is 34% in 1996, but it plummets very rapidly to 10% in 2016 and ultimately 8.6% in 2017. And from 2012 to 2017, roughly 800,000 people claimed DACA status. Now, the results of the synthesis of literature has indicated that the economic contributions of immigrants is large, which means a 50 billion plus surplus of taxes were paid by immigrants in 1997. DACA participants are also likely to be among the higher skilled group of immigrants whom the National Academy report finds may raise the wages of both higher and lower skilled native born workers. The continuation of the decade 2020 to 2029, the eligible population may have an aggregate income of 437 billion, pay 35 billion in income taxes, and generate 67 billion in FICA taxes. The deportation of the recipients will produce a net drain on government finances, as estimated of the cost to arrest and deport an undocumented individual is 12,500, and the cost across all recipients would be larger than the entire immigrant and customs enforcement budget, also known as ICE, of $5 billion. And also, termination will reduce the number of jobs occupied in fields that require degrees in higher education. So now during the COVID-19 crisis, there are a lot of medical staff, nurses, doctors who are actually DACA recipients. And terminating DACA would mean that we would have less medical staff, doctors, nurses, and also essential workers working in the United States and kind of helping it run through this crisis. And this little graph down here indicates the changing of the U.S. labor force, which has increased, and it was projected to increase to 24% into 2050. So the labor force that Latinos enter most commonly into are farming and construction, which is also why families that are farmers or are construction workers have lower income, which also contributes to the possibility of not being able to pay